the Indo-PACOM and European theaters. But our panelists today are George Lamb, Ali Long, and Adam Ringel. Mr. Lamb is the DoD Director of Cloud and Software Modernization, bringing together federal and civilian industry capabilities. He has been a global staff engineer, a systems engineer who helped his company invent and implement network virtualization. Because I'm a little punchy, because I've been here, I'm not used to working as long. You went to Carnegie Mellon and in pure mathematics and professional writing. So you were doing Chat GPT before it was Chat GPT, right? Okay. All right, good. See, I put that together. I'm not technical. I'm a ship driver, but I can put stuff together. Ali Long is the program manager for Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability and has orchestrated the establishment of JWCC and stood up its acquisition team. Ms. Long won the McCoy Award for Excellence in Acquisition in 2023 and was the DoD CIO's nomination for Defense Scoop Top 50 Most Inspiring Up-and-Comers in 2025. And you're also a budding civil rights or Civil War scholar as well, as we were discussing the Battle of Gettysburg. See, I'm making them smile, okay? And I'm off script, you can tell. And then and also she'll be serving as our moderator for the panel as well. And lastly, Adam Ringel is DISA's J-9 OCONUS Cloud Portfolio Manager and oversees onboarding implementation of OCONUS cloud efforts for the JOE Cloud and Stratus. He is a former Army NCO with the 4th ID and deployed for 2 tours for Operation Iraqi Freedom. Thank you very much for your service and the things that you do. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists. Thank you very much.
All right, good afternoon and welcome. We're really excited to have you here. We know it's the end of the day, so we are the only thing stopping you from all the fun activities that you probably have planned for this evening. So we do have to go an hour, but we're hoping we can make it fun and an eventful hour with you guys. But I'm really excited for this session. So we each play a pivotal role in what we're bringing to the department, right? Being the program manager of JWCC, I'm really excited about this because Joe and what we're going to talk about with OCONUS Cloud, it leverages the JWCC contract, right? And none of this would be possible without strategy and forward thinking that the CIO provides to us as well. So we're going to start with Adam. Just to kick it off with what do we need to know about Joe? Can you give us some backstory? And we'll have some slides up here for you guys to see, but it'll be more of a casual conversation that we're going to have.
All right, thanks, Ali. So welcome, everyone. I really appreciate you attending this panel today. We've had a lot of great successes in FY25. George, I really appreciate you being able to support us with this panel today. Shows a great partnership between DISA and DoD CIO. Like the panel's called, you are responsible for the strategy. You've given it over to us to actually implement and make it a reality. So we really appreciate the collaboration between the 2 agencies to be able to make this a reality. So Joint Operational Edge is the concept for addressing those gaps in the OCONUS Cloud landscape within the different theaters. We have the advocacy letters from the different combatant commands that they need cloud at the edge. So Operational Edge provides a intermediary between CONUS and the tactical edge, because you don't need the adversaries and all the work out in the field having to take all that data, all the sensor feeds, all the kill chain information, and sending it all the way back CONUS. You need something in the middle, which, George, if you could elaborate a little bit on how this strategy came about from the 2018 OCONUS Cloud strategy.
Yeah, so I guess you got the 3 of us here. When you look at something like Joe, it's a capability. You can go to JWCC, you can order it. You can say, I want capability out in the world. You call Adam up and you'll get it. The thing that we did from the strategic standpoint is try and understand where there's gaps in the way that we put compute out in the world. Up on the chart, you see the tactical, the OCONUS cloud, and then the regional. So the way that we actually look at the levels of warfare, the tactical is the units that are in the field. The operational is where the commands are. That's actually where the battles are fought and where the strategy is done. And then the regional, in our minds, the regional is the big clouds, the massive data centers that we have in the US where a lot of the processing is done. If you look at how the CSPs operate, how the cloud service providers operate, they build big data centers. They're massive data centers. We leverage that. We take advantage of that. But then if you look at how the DoD operates, we go to war with the Joint Commands. We need to have information out in the field. We need the resiliency. We need the data available. We don't want to have any latency. So that operational component is something that really doesn't exist in the CSP landscape 4 or 5 years ago. We all know it now as edge. Edge computing is kind of that level. So in a sense, DoD was way ahead of the commercial service providers with the need for having operational compute out there. The other really important thing when we first started thinking about this is how we build systems in the department. So traditionally, we'd build large systems, they'd be custom, they follow a legacy waterfall model. 2 or 3 years later, after you start building it, you get something deployed. In terms of how we're looking at compute and software and applications in the department, DevSecOps, software modernization, using containers, using the current cutting edge technology, that was the platform we wanted to start targeting for. And that platform exists in the CSPs. Cloud first, cloud services, a lot of applications we're building in the department leverage that. So we wanted to partner with industry. We didn't want to get ahead of it. We wanted to sort of leverage the best of the US industrial base, put that together with the warfighting mission of the department, put that technology in the field. So partnering with the CSPs, we started thinking about how to deploy edge, working with DISA, understanding the knowledge there and the skills they have from operationalizing this. We formed this team and invented the concept with the OCONUS edge, the regional deployment, addressing some of our problems, and then turning it into, like through JWCC, an operational capability. The one thing that I probably, whenever I talk about Joe, the reason I explain it is such an important capability in partnering with the CSPs is because if we have to go to war tomorrow, and if you go and you look at the Joe nodes we have right now, there's 2 racks. We can call up the CSPs, and within a week, they can start dropping racks of computers, up to 100 racks. So that scalable, seamless integration is built into the whole design. So we don't actually have to build this in advance. We don't have to have computers wait in warehouses. We're leveraging the best of the CSP technology, the way that we're designing. We were ahead of the financial sector. So if you look at the financial sector, they want edge computing for super low latency. We want edge computing so that we have quick information dominance out in the field. And so that's the background, and that's kind of the model that we have up here.
Absolutely. And then, George, do you want to expand a little bit for like some of the gaps in that your strategy was to address, and how we came with the partnership with SOCOM to get the first AWS outpost deployed out into the field, and what we did in Hawaii?
You want to go to sausage making?
A little bit.
So, like, if you look at where we are today, you call Allie up and you get Joe nodes. When we first started building Joe, it was a concept. We had to sell it. We were competing with some other technologies. We do every week, every Thursday morning at 8:30, we do something called the Cloud Way Forward. We just do an open call to the department, 250 people, 300, 400 people join in, and we just say, this is what's happening in the cloud this week. And about 2 years ago, I was talking on the Cloud Way Forward, and I said, the Joint Operational Edge is going to provide compute capability in the regions. It has no money. And SOCOM, they called me right after and they said, well, we got $500,000. Can we help you build it? So, like, no lies, that's actually what happened. We had some UFR money from the CIO. We matched it with some SOCOM money. We built an operational capability. The other part of that story is when we look at how we built Joe, it's going to be the model for how we're doing a lot of transformation in the future. So the way we're looking at it is we wanted to deploy an application first. We didn't want to just put compute out there. We wanted to put an application. So the SOCOM Tactical Assault Kit, that was the application they wanted. So our whole vision for how to scale it, how to size it, how to connect it, was based on the application demands. So that was really sort of the sausage making. It was SOCOM combined with the plea for us to get some money to build this thing that we thought was really important. And then it's just expanded. We've got many users, and Adam, you can talk about who we got on this system and sort of the demand that we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. If my cursor were really nice. All right, so where we're at in FY25. So as George mentioned, right, we partnered with SOCOM and the early rollout. AWS was awarded. We did the AWS Outpost and deployed into Hawaii. We deployed the tactical assault kit, like George mentioned, and we were off to the races, right? We stood up that environment. We were leveraging the DoD data centers from DISA that provide that Tier 3 support. We're able to meet with different mission partners and understand their use cases based on the strategy that DoD's put forth, so that way we can follow the why before what and understand their cloud smart journeys. Because a lot of the things that we found when we're working with the distant mission partners beyond SOCOM is they haven't actually operated at the edge. They didn't really understand some of the things that they would need in that environment, especially when they're used to having all those resources that AWS provides, and as you extend that availability zone out to the edge. So we've had just recently a particular mission partner that's deploying an application in support of PAC Sentry say that their web page went from a 40-second load page from having to reach back OCONUS to a half a second by having it deployed out on the Joe node out in Hawaii. We're actually partnering with them to extend to scale out and deploy their environment out in Japan, and we are operational in Hawaii and Japan. And just think for a minute, if you had to sit there and these commanders that are out in the field, they had to sit there and just wait for a 40 seconds for their web page to load. And then you can couple that with the drones and sensor to shooter information that's being piped back. And if that had to scale and go all around to a CONUS deployment, all the way back out to that tactical edge without something in between, the amount of time that would take for them to actually make the decisions, have that right data at the right place at the right time to make decisions faster than our enemies, we couldn't get that done. That's where Joint Operational Edge came from, and I really appreciate what DoD's CIO has come up with from a strategy, because we are now seeing it in action and understanding the implications that it's providing. So as I mentioned, we are operational also in Japan. We're starting to get after the data mesh concept and work with the mission partners that are already deployed in Hawaii and be able to extend their applications out in Japan, and then start to get after the distributed applications as well. So that way, when if a site were to go down, they can continue operations and execute mission without having to worry about their applications. That really, as Colonel Veneta has, hammered into me time and time again, their mission in Indo-Pacific is the first and second island chains. While Hawaii is great, as we get after further deployments, that's really where they are concerned and where they have to get after their mission, because that is their concern for the Joint Warfighter. Joint Operational Edge fills that gap and starts to get after that need, and so we're excited to get after things. But George, I have some bad news.
No.
Uh-oh. So in Germany, we had some delays. Germany faced a couple weeks slip in schedule, but I have a great news. In Bahrain, we were ahead of schedule by about 4 weeks, so I'm going to call it a wash from great work from the AWS team. And as of Friday, we have our ATO and can actually call Germany and Bahrain operational. So this slide is out of date because, as you all know, slides are always out of date, and I couldn't get it updated in time. So, Mr. Marshall, I apologize. But that's the great news. So we're just like we talked about how we're able to extend the applications in Hawaii and Japan. We have DISA applications that we're excited to work with. We had already extended them in Japan, and I floated the idea this morning to see if we can extend them in Germany and Bahrain, and we're quickly going to get after that, so that way we can get after General Stanton's request to demonstrate a capability in the very near future, and it's really exciting times. So with all that, I know that was a lot of information. I don't know if you want to add on to anything.
Let's turn back to Allie. She's our moderator. We're just kind of running here. So
I know Adam's doing such a great job. I love him just being proactive there. But so with everything, with having Adam to the production side, right, with JWCC being the execution, where George and the CIO come in is the strategy, right? And what General Stanton has put on DISA is, his 4 priorities and what we are following in J-9. So JWCC, out to bring the warfighter, our number one emerging technology to the cloud. And that's what we're really after. Continuous modernization is one of his strategies that we are doing every day. with the help of industry, right? With the help of the cloud service providers. And there's other strategies I know, George, you were going to mention here from your side of kind of how you're ensuring that we're in alignment. So we're not just going to continue throwing in some more nodes, everywhere that we want, right? That we're following some subset of standards, right?
Yeah, so one thing I would start out with, a kind of like big strategy, if you look at kind of what's happening in the industry, I always go back to Mark Andreessen, like software's never done, that was his quote. The other thing he's been saying is that you need to just build it. So when we're looking at how Joe evolved, we just built it. So there were some things that we learned in the process. You didn't talk about like when we had latency to the Japanese node. In order for Joe to operate with the technology we chose, you need a fairly long time to synchronize the cloud with the regions and what's out there. And the DISA networks couldn't support it. We were having latency that was like out the roof. But by building it, we figured out where the latency was. So putting this operational capability out gave us probes into the network, and we turned around and it improved the network. So we went from something on the order of 500 milliseconds down to 150 to 200 milliseconds. So we got within the latency that we could actually synchronize it and operate the system. And at the same time, just by building it first, by sort of changing our model from test it, deploy it, and then field it, we're going field it first, and then what's broken, and then fix it iteratively. And that's kind of part of the strategy that you look at with the software modernization and how we're sort of changing first from traditional engineering to agile engineering. A lot of the times what we're doing is we build it first, we try it, we break it, but we put it into production. So we take things like TAC, the assault kit. We take things like the Matrix chat. That's something that's being used for chatting by the Navy, and Matrix chat's now running over the Joint Operational Edge nodes. So build it first, break it, and it's not really something you hear in the department where we want to go break it, but we didn't plan on breaking the network. We didn't plan on knowing that the network couldn't work on those particular routes, but some network optimization. And I think that's sort of the philosophy we're doing from a strategic standpoint, is how do we adopt these agile principles? How do we field capability that's resilient, powerful, useful, and meaningful? How do we get feedback from the end users, right? SOCOM was our end user. It's not the case where the end user is some operator someplace. It is SOCOM has a mission. Is Joe delivering that mission? And we're taking that philosophy, we're running it across, we've got a new program called S2.0. It's the next vision of the SIPRNet. So if you look at how the SIPRNet works, how the secret fabric works, actually, I don't like to say SIPRNet anymore. I kind of say secret fabric, because when we start looking at it, there's a gazillion secret networks out there. They're all the same classification level, but they can't really talk. So we're trying to break that. What's the model that we can start connecting these things together in a secure fashion? So I think Joe is like the first really good example of that agile engineering approach. So we already do agile software, but agile engineering is kind of a mantra that we're trying to push.
And that's a great point, George, because part of the first things that we had out in Hawaii, right, is we were one of the first ones, or the first ones, I believe, from AWS, to actually do an outpost scale out in Hawaii. And that's how we were able to get those efficiencies with Bahrain through the network improvements that you had talked about. And that's, going out there, implementing first, getting after that, because I know that we had heard early on with someone else that had deployed AWS Outpost, they didn't realize the level of effort that it takes to actually manage that environment. So by coming to DISA and providing a DoD managed environment, we are providing the logistics through the acquisition through JWCC. We are handling the coordination with the data centers, in this case today with DISA, and we are exploring the other non-DISA data centers, OCONUS, and we are also doing the capacity planning and management of that environment. These are all things that I think Mr. Marshall hit on kind of this morning. They're overhead items that folks don't really take into consideration. They see that this is a server and it's a hybrid solution that you can put out in the field, but there's a lot of things like power and cooling that a tier 3 data center is providing that they didn't take into consideration. And if we can take that off their plate, so that way they can take it to the tactical edge and focus on the demands in that environment, it lets them focus on their application and their mission.
And I think, Adam, the challenge, right, what we're looking at with JWCC is, with all good things, you have to look to the future, right? We're having to look at what's next for JWCC. So conveniently, we're calling the follow-on contract, you may have heard it, JWCC 2.0, we're actually tagging it next. So what is next? And that's what we're building with JWCC. How can we take a really good product, a really good contract, and make it better? And some of the things that we're leaning on, with the CIO side, what's the demand, right? What mission partners have not moved and why? Like, what are the challenges there? I think that the hard part is getting something created and developed, and then once you have that, figuring out, okay, how can we make it better? What can we do to really improve it for the warfighter in the next go? So I know we were thinking the same thing for Joe. Can you kind of go through what's your thought process, or how are you figuring out what is coming next for Joe?
Yeah, so what's coming next for Joe is we are working directly with that community of interest from all the mission partners that are actively doing the adoption in the Indo-Pacific. We're closely working with EUCOM now to understand their mission requirements and deploy their applications out on the new EUCOM node. Now that we're operational, we'll be able to get more into the weeds of that. And that's going to help with that direct feedback to get those requirements, and that will feed into my follow-on contract that I have to do in FY26. And then I know my chief engineer has given direct feedback to Ali on all the different things that we need from market research from our industry partners. If you're familiar with Matt Quinn, he was formerly with JITIC, and he definitely has his methods of being able to get into the weeds of all the different scenarios that could come up, and he can go at length for what technical requirements we need out OCONUS especially.
Yeah, and that's really helpful. And George, I want to pass it over to you. So as you see, like as a whole, to support the DoD mission partners, what are you seeing as some of the things that we need to keep in mind, not just for Joe, but JWCC, right? Like how do you make sure we're on track for meeting the strategies?
Yeah, so I want to go down two paths. The first is sort of staying with Joe, and we didn't really talk about the multi-tenancy aspect. So Joe is a multi-tenant environment. It's multiple users using it. One of the things that we're trying to do from sort of a strategic level is understand how multi-tenant separation can be securely done, how we operate that multi-tenancy, how we do billing on that multi-tenancy. Eventually we want to get to Joe being cost recovery. Initially we made it basically, it was free. We provided the infrastructure. We did the demand generation, but now we're doing a transition to how do we make it more cost effective. The other sort of big news, we got the Bahrain node, but we actually got through CAPE, and we got funding to sustain Joe for the next 5 years. So it's on a path where we have enough money to keep it running, but the way we're looking at that money is we don't want it to just give free, we call it free chicken. We don't want to give free compute. We want to take that money and use it for innovation. So all the money that's coming from CAPE really should be innovation money. The sustainment should be from a cost recovery mechanism, because these are valuable workloads, programs have the money. So that's sort of the business standpoint. How do we do the multi-tenancy to get shared resources so nobody is like putting their own mission out there? How do we get that securely? How do we transition the ownership, the AWS ownership, to DISA? And then the other kind of really interesting thing is we say that the cloud is the cloud, the edge cloud is, it's an extension of the regional cloud, but in reality, there's some differences. Security is a little bit different, certificates a little bit different. So by building this and working with the partners, Adam's getting really smart on how to get things on the edge quickly. So we're looking at what are the guidance that we have to put out? What's like the best practices for, like this is the quick way to get your application out there with all the lessons learned, some of the scaling things. So I'll turn that one back over to you if you could talk about some of the, because whenever I talk to you and Matt, it's like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, especially when you think of the community of interest, right? We have a lot of lessons learned, right? Especially even with TAC. We took that initial initiative, application. We created an AMI for that. That's Amazon's image to redeploy the EC2, the virtual machine, very quickly for that application, get it up and running quick. But when we have extended them to other AORs, they needed to look at, from a security perspective, of how we did the cutting edge and what we need to actually do that they are postured for the enterprise level, so that way they can have this standardized and pushed out to all the different nodes. Because one of the disconnects, even with other applications, is they've had difficulty keeping the software all consistent and deployed across the different environments, especially if they hand their software stack off to the different combatant commands. They need to keep that all in sync, and that's where Joe comes into play because we can start to create these templates, create those AMIs, or as we go in the future with innovation and go into other CSPs and have some cloud portability, we can do things more DevSecOps style, have it as infrastructure as code, and get after these deployments and have the monitoring and capabilities that ensures that environment is secure as it needs to be, and that way we can help them with their accreditation and get up and running faster and not have to wait for a long time to get that ATO.
No, that's really helpful, and we've covered a lot of bases. The one thing we haven't really mentioned is the challenges, right? Like where we're seeing challenges and where we maybe have to focus effort. So George, I'll start with you. From the services, what are you hearing are a lot of the challenges? I know JWCC, I have some of my own challenges, right, that impact Joe. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of the products and what we do in J9, they affect each other, right? So challenges I'm doing on JWCC, they impact what Adam is working on Joe. So can you bring in from what you're hearing from the services? And I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to talk about as number one, but I want to hear it from you first.
Oh, now I'm not sure what number one should be.
Third-party marketplace?
Third-party marketplace. So well, I'll do two things. The first thing is, particularly with Joe, we're using AWS in Joe. The one thing that I'm concerned about is we don't have all the CSPs involved. Like I would really love to have an Azure node, a Google node, an Oracle node. I want to take the full scope of what's available in JWCC. Primarily because we're seeing like, as you get locked in, not really locked in, it's a terrible word. As you're getting used to using one of these CSPs, there's other services, there's other places that are better, and you want to be able to move between it. You want to have a true multi-cloud. So I want to see more Joe nodes so people can take their Azure workloads and deploy it right there. I want them to take their Google workloads. So that's the first thing, is getting the full ecosystem. We've demonstrated the power of this OCONUS edge. We've demonstrated the power of using CSP edge technology. And so one other thing, there was always a myth when we first started this. The myth is that you have to be synchronized. If you lose connectivity, the thing goes down. And particularly with AWS, everyone was saying as soon as you lose connectivity, it depends what you're doing. I've seen 2 weeks of disconnected node fully operational running. So a lot of those myths we have to take care of and get into the diversity of things. I'm not really so worried about the particular vendors, but I know that I have people in the services. Like there's folks that have applications that run in a particular CSP environment. I want them to have a seamless experience going from the regional cloud to the edge clouds. So that's JWCC is enabling it, but we have to have the vendors participating with Joe and working in that. So that's probably the biggest concern. And then the second thing is more strategically, as we're working in the edge space, we're not doing as much custom development. We're really taking advantage of all the services that are available from the CSPs, their native services. But the more important innovation we're finding is in the marketplace. There's some really amazing capabilities that's in the cloud marketplaces. And we need to get to the point where we're building applications using the full suite of the marketplace, like the cutting edge applications that are out there, and making them all available through JWCC. So we have, CSPs can provide great things, but I think we just got over with Mod 10, the ability to get more marketplace stuff through. And I'm trying to, I'm sort of crossing my fingers that we're going to see even more marketplace technology come through that Mod 10. And as we look at JWCC next, make it really easy to get to the marketplace so we could lead with the innovation as opposed to just keep begging for the implementation. And that's kind of strategically, I think, where we need to get with JWCC.
Yeah, and I agree. And I know my CSPs are in the audience, so that's definitely our challenge too. It was definitely a group effort, right, to try to get after the third-party marketplace challenges. That the department as a whole, right, that just that's to be expected. Us just having our own DoD policies, procedures, things we have to follow. So we understand those challenges, and I think we're getting there. I think every week we're hearing more and more services being added to the catalog, and that's really good movement for the department. So Adam, passing it over to Joe specific, what are some challenges or some things that you're kind of seeing that you want to bring up today?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, is just operating in that edge environment. We're finding that some of the mission partners, or strategic partners, they haven't actually operated in those. So as they as we have Joint Operational Edge funded today and available to them today, we can start working with them, have them experiment and get after that proof of concept, align that with their operational plans, align those with upcoming exercises. I mentioned Pacific Century, but there's all kinds. Bold Quest is one that comes up frequently. They have Valiant Shield, several that actually drive their requirements, right? So if they get in our environment today, start understanding the limitations or we'll just go with the limitations. If they understand the limitations of the edge, they can start to deploy their applications to operate in those environments, which is going to extend to the tactical edge. And then by going after a hybrid and understand the connection back to something that they've then procured via JWCC and can make that connection to the CONUS region, they can scale out and take advantage of those capabilities that the CSPs are providing. Other challenges is just simply education, right? Why I'm already in the cloud. I have cloud today. The cloud means I can access it anywhere. Why do I need it at the edge? Well, I even read an article as recently as I think 3 weeks ago where the 101st realized that very quickly they were conducting an exercise and they were not used to operating at the edge. And so they are investing their time and resources to train up their workforce and get after those applications so that way they can understand how operating in this environment needs to actually happen.
No, and I think education, that's something, JWCC, we've had to work on too. Just what do we do? What do we offer, right? And when we add things and we change with this continuous modernization, right, we have to continue to put the messaging out there. So we really rely on the different groups within J9 to really help get the messaging out because there's so many services, so many people that want to use it that are in different phases of their cloud journey, right? They're new. They're already with a CSP, which I try to say they're already comfortable with a CSP, and you tend to stay there because it's what's easy and what's comfortable. But what else is out there? What are things that could maybe be a better fit for their mission? Just want to pass it over to you, George. Anything else you want to add today or anything to leave with the audience?
So when we built JWCC, we wanted as a mission DoD warfighting capability. So we put it on the SIPRNet. So it is operational on the SIPRNet. As we're looking to expand it, we want to go to the NIPRNet. We want to be able to have the unclassified workloads, so that could be extended. That's an important thing. The multi-cloud mesh, I think there's a lot of technical challenges still in there. So like at the CIO level, we're trying to think about strategically where we need to go. So that whole mesh concept and putting enough resiliency out so we can use the CSP technologies to show resilience. I think those are kind of key things. The last thing is we're thinking about like what are the future workloads. When we built the first Joe node, it was basically compute and storage. We very quickly realized that we needed to have GPUs out there. AI is an important part. When we're going to Bold Quest, we're going to be demonstrating some AI capabilities. So it's a scalable capability. Adam says we need to get the demand, but we also need to know what kind of demand. Whenever I hear AI, it quickly becomes lots of GPUs. So I need to know like how many GPUs we're going to be ordering, what's the workloads going there. The other thing that we're working very closely with in the cyberspace is the Zero Trust Portfolio Office. So how do we put workloads in there and make sure that all of the base architectural Zero Trust principles are deployed? And then on top of that, how are the services provisionally authorized so we can very quickly bring any application into compliance and then demonstrate all the Zero Trust attributes on both the CONUS cloud and the OCONUS cloud. So those are kind of like making things even simpler and addressing more of the workloads from this initial base of operational capability.
No, thank you for that. And Adam, what do you want to share as kind of your final thoughts?
Yeah, just how can we get after better integration, right? We have Thunderdome to get after Zero Trust and plug into that. That's what's so great about Joe is we have JWCC within J9. We have different capabilities and partnerships. So I'm working closely with our containerization as a service product owner to get after resolve some of the limitations of an outpost and see how we can deploy an OpenShift Kubernetes cluster local to the stack. From our industry partners, what we really need is work with the different strategic partners, help them to understand how they can create distributed applications that can work across a mesh network like George has identified. What can they do if point A goes down to keep their data in sync with point B And when point A comes back up, how can they quickly get back to regular operations? Those are some of the really unique challenges that are faced in these theaters. Also, we need high dense compute capabilities that can operate within the power and cooling constraints that are in these environments. As you go into these different theaters, that is a very real need and constraint that they all face. And then I think George might have hit on it earlier, right? FinOps and the cost recovery models. I need to make this so where it is not going to be burdensome to the mission owner. They need to be able to POM for this, budget for this, and get that out into place. It cannot be a barrier to adoption if we make this ridiculously expensive. And one of the other things I like to mention is, we're all DoD, and believe it or not, we do talk to each other. So if you are part of the DIB and having these conversations with us, help partner with us, because we are all talking to each other, and if we're asking for you to demonstrate something today with a particular mission partner, that is for a reason, and we get that there's something else in the future, but we're trying to address needs and challenges today, and that's what we need your help with.
No, that makes sense. So thank you, Adam, for that. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on, just to make sure we all are on the same page. So who actually came up with the name Joe? I know there's a story behind it. So George, do you want to share a little bit more?
I came to the department from the federal space, or from the commercial space. So I was in startup world, I was in the industrial space, and I get to this first meeting, and you would not believe the acronyms that they were throwing out. There was like all kinds of letters, and I'm like, this needs to be simple. We're just going to call it Joe. So the original name was the Gigantic Infrastructure Joint Operational Edge, and that kind of went a little ways, but eventually they said, we're just going to drop it. We don't need G.I. Joe. We're just going to go plain old Joe. So it's the plain old Joe. If you go out in the field, there's a CoJo is out there. There was some talk about that one. We're thinking about SJO, which will be the secret Joe. So the key is, and actually all the systems that we're doing now, I just like 3-letter acronyms. So you're seeing from the CIO, it's acronyms that are very simple to remember. But yeah, it was an indoctrination into the best practices of the industrial world with like simple words, and the DoD where we like convoluted acronyms that I could not pronounce. So I get credit, and Tom Lamb gives me credit for whenever we go out. That's the only thing I really contributed to Joe, but sitting in meetings and giving it a name.
Well, I'm glad you're accepting of JWCC. We are a 4-letter acronym, but it's quite a mouthful, but we make it work. So we are going to pop up the QR code if you want to put that slide up, Adam. So you can scan this. It'll take you to our J9 hack page. So not only can you find out more about JWCC and Joe, all the other offerings for the J9 will also be there. So we are going to end with questions from the audience. They did let me know if you can use the microphone in the middle so we can clearly hear you. That would be great.
While we're waiting for questions to start, I will add that we are going to be at the conference all week. So just visit the DISA booth. The hybrid cloud broker is there, and they can connect you with the team. They'd be happy to talk to you about what Joint Operational Edge is, understand your use cases, and connect you with the teams. And then, of course, if you need to get your GovCloud commercial region from JWCC, they can help you with that as well. Mr. Hale.
Now we got to worry. Okay.
So thanks everybody for the panel. First off, it was really good. So I just want to make sure everybody heard what I think I heard. So right now, if a mission partner wants to leverage Joe in the Indo-PACOM region or in EUCOM region, right? EUCOM, AFRICOM, they can. How do they get on that? How do they contact us contact you guys to get in that process? Right?
That's a great question, sir. So you can go to hack.mil, which is currently under a rebrand, but I do believe that it's a new URL. But there's disa.cst@mail.mil or the contact us on hack.mil, and that will connect you with the hybrid cloud broker. Or if you're here today at the conference, you can go to the booth, and we can start to get after that use case and understand those requirements, because we like to start with the why before what, before I say for sure that you want to use Joint Operational Edge. But that's how they can get started. Provide us a use case, let us understand your requirements, let us understand that problem and challenge that you're trying to solve, and see if Joe is the right platform for you, or is there another environment within J9, like JWCC, like private cloud through Stratus. I mentioned CAS as a containerized platform, but it's all going to depend on what they need, and obviously for Joe, it helps if you have an OCONUS requirement.
And how much does it cost?
Today it is funded through FY25, and as we mentioned, we're working on the cost recovery model that we expect to be providing out to the services in FY26.
So Adam, it's free.
It's free.
Okay, it's free.
Free chicken, as you said earlier.
Joe is free for right now. JWCC was what we used to get to the CSPs, but Hack is the one you go talk to. Hack is going to manage it for you, and Hack will negotiate with Ali to make sure we can keep it free.
That's the key part I think they're trying to hit on. Okay, any other questions?
Well, we wait for other questions because I want folks to get their CE credit. Some of the other applications that we've deployed on Joe are, I think George hit on it, there's a Navy platform that they're using for some chat capabilities. We have deployed onto the node itself a large language model and the ability to do some chat ops capabilities. That was in experimentation with Pacific Air Force and AFRL. We also are working to expand the capability, not be constrained by what is on the outpost for the T4 NVIDIA GPUs, and partnering with AFRL to get after a DGX capability in H200s. So that way we can go beyond what the physical infrastructure is and scale that out beyond. And that's what we definitely want industry coming in. What are some complementary services that your solutions can provide, working with the hardware and infrastructure that I have today?
We got to make something up.
Hello,
Hello.
Here we go.
Jeff
no.
from
Okay.
DISA. So, I heard a lot of great things about kind of, I won't say tap dancing around what the application set is that Joe is actually useful for, but can you help from a vendor, from an industry point of view, what are the type of applications that are the right fit for a Joe environment? So that as they're out talking to the strategic partners themselves, and strategic partners are trying to figure out, what do I actually want to use a Joe for? What is the mission that it's best used for? That they can help kind of set that tone with the strategic partner.
Great question. So, do you want to start, or would you like me to take it?
So we envisioned it as enabling CJAD C2. So command and control, things that the joint commands have on the joint bases. So that's sort of the bread and butter. How, if we were to wage operations from the joint bases, how do they stay viable and connected to information? So that's the fundamental reason from a strategic level why we went down this path. To solve the latency, to solve the resiliency problems, and to enable command and control. But it's since been used for a lot more use cases. But I think that's probably, if you're in that space, GCC, GCCS, we're working with some of the folks that have done like Palantir. We're trying to put that application out there in the command and control space. We've done some work with CDAO, so looking at what's happening for things like Maven, things around the field for bringing artificial intelligence to the warfighter. So that was the basic for that. And then, Adam, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the specific applications you have.
Actually, I was going to go the other way, is kind of more generic, is right, data-intensive applications, right? As I kind of hit on a few times, if you can bring that data to the edge and have it locally there, that's going to allow those warfighters to actually get access to the information they need. If you deploy then an AI capability that can crunch through a lot of data or get feeds from the tactical edge that is being deployed out there, and be able to understand that to quickly get that to a decision maker or commander out in the field, those are some of the things that they're trying to get after. Also, those that when they experience a DDIL environment, if they get disconnected and now that data is local to the edge node and they can continue operations, continue mission without necessarily have that connection all the way back CONUS and keep the operations going in that theater, those are some of the real things that they need to do, especially during some of these exercises. George, do you happen to know from BoldQuest, like I feel like there was a recent application, it's a great example of this.
BoldQuest, we're doing, I know we're working with CDAO, I'm not quite sure the AI application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot is different capabilities where they're trying to do through a web front end. They are taking in similar to TAC, right? They take all this data feeds in. They're putting it on the map so that way the commanders can see it, and then they also take different forms and reports and ingest all that data. They run inference on it, and then they can spit out reports that quickly give the information a commander needs to get that decision made. But in order to do that, they need the information from the field, and they need that core information for what they actually do. I think I seen it at another vendor's booth today. Their company information within the DoD, right? You can have a large language model. That's great. That has that base information. But what does the Army need? What does the Air Force need? Especially in these theaters, what does that command need to actually have relevant information that's going to keep that commander informed and it provide relevant information to them so that way they know what's going on, especially during that exercise or during a real world event.
So industry, what I want you to take away from this conversation is as you are working with a strategic partner on their application set that they want, or you're working with the marketplace, third-party marketplace, to put something out there, don't just think about a single point of an application set. Think about how you can build something out for that commander, that combatant command in PACOM, how you can make part of your application an edge application from the get-go, from your foundation. It's not an afterthought. It's not something that you can think about later or not think about at all. This is how you help us now with what our future needs to look like.
Thanks, sir. And being cloud agnostic, right? If we have that cloud portability, and as we expand to different cloud providers in the long term, be able to move between where we actually need it or deploy as we stand up new technologies and new capabilities, we can bring those applications there quickly. That's really what they need, and they need it fast.
Yeah, I'd add, like, the strategic notion, we want all the CSPs there. Like, we want to have every resource that our warfighters need. Right now, we're starting with the initial ones, but we want to really grow this into multi-cloud, multi-vendor, fully support across the globe, not just in 2 regions, but the entire globe. And we want to have enough resiliency and enough classification levels that we can do full operations.
And then Allie, to close us out, I mean, you're doing all your market research direct from the services and teams today, so JWCC Next is going to provide us with more options, right?
Right, yeah. We found our greatest source of information, and to ensure that we're on track with what we're setting up for JWCC Next is to get lessons learned from the services. So we quickly found the best way to do that is we kind of came up with a questionnaire, kind of an interview type white paper where we gave them to each of the services, and it just kind of said, like, is JWCC meeting your mission skills? What do you need? What could we do better? What services do you currently use that you haven't been able to come to JWCC because we don't have it yet, right? So then that kind of gives me a little bit more power to go back to the CSPs and kind of, punch them in the shoulder and be like, hey, let's get these added, right? So our mission partners can use them. But we're gathering all of those lessons learned for JWCC Next, trying to come up with an even better contract vehicle going forward in the next couple of years. So definitely these large acquisitions take a long time. So we're definitely going to be working on that for the next few years. And then, we'll have a good product at the end that will then impact, the future of Joe as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sort of do a shout out for the amazing work that's going on with JWCC. At the CIO level, we consider JWCC Now, the contract now. It's on Mod 10. And I'll just share with you that the Army was really worried about JWCC being able to support it. Allie and team turned around Mod 10 to address the Army needs, like the entire Army. They're now probably the best supporter of JWCC as an enterprise, as a service. Leo Garcia just says, he says great things about the JWCC turnaround, the JWCC ability to support the Army's needs. So, an amazing contract. JWCC Now is amazing. JWCC Next will start addressing some of those marketplace questions. I know you're doing the market survey. We're trying to figure out what really do we need to do to improve this thing, what fundamental capabilities. So We're still trying to make sure that we understand that. But yeah, the way that the contract's running now under Ali's leadership is really amazing.
Well, thank you, George. I feel like we need to have you like moonlight with our hybrid cloud brokers. I mean, you're just doing such a good job helping. But it's definitely been a journey, right? Like we awarded JWCC now is what we're kind of calling it, to not have confusion, 17 months ahead of time, which was great, right? It got the department that missing piece, got that contract vehicle, but there were some things that we just couldn't solve with that, and so that's what really we're looking to get after for next. And we just really appreciate that any of the services, when they've come to us with an issue, we've really worked closely recently. The Air Force has come to us with some concerns and some areas where they've had to pivot a little bit, and where we can come back, and the team is just really adaptable and able to, like you said, quickly turn around some things that we need to get changed on the contract. We do like to joke around, we have 4 CSPs, so everything we do on the contract, we have to do 4 times. And we have to get everybody to agree when we make a change. And that's kind of been a big lift, kind of merging the gap between the department and industry, right? And what, we kind of say our friends in the IC side, what they've been able to accomplish, has kind of set the standard for the department. And that's just what we're trying to keep pace and really come up with a great contract that's even better. So I appreciate those sentiments. I think we're almost there. We have like 4 minutes to get you those CE credits. And I know your drink tickets do also expire at 5 o'clock, so don't forget.
I have an easy one, Ali. So for those that are not in the surveys that you've sent out, how would they get their feedback on how you can improve JWCC next?
Great question. So they can come to me, they can come through the Hybrid Cloud Brokers office. We would love to have that sent out to every strategic partner, right, in the department, and we'll definitely take that feedback.
And I know one of the things, right, we have a customer success team where they push out these surveys on your team's behalf, right?
Yeah.
So when you get those market research, that surveys that we're putting out from JWCC, that is your direct line back to Ali. So that way her team can take all that data, use that demand signal to actually get those requirements as part of their market research and put those back out in their RFIs that they're going out for this follow-on contract. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Similar to me, if I ever put out a Joe one, please fill it out.
All right, looks like we got a question, so I think we're ready to go.
So, is there any consideration or appetite in the future to utilize Joe for some of our select international partners like Five Eyes, who does a lot of their communications across DoD SIPRNet?
So
currently?
on Joe today, that is not the goal, right? We're U.S. only and operating at the secret fabric. There is something on the horizon called Joe CE, Coalition Environment, that we will be working with the greater DISA and the combatant commands to feed into those requirements. But absolutely, that's a core requirement from the combatant commands and their the advocacy letters that they put out. So that's our next fun challenge that's very on the real near-term horizon.
Yeah, if I could point out someone in the crowd, the sort of the technology we're looking at to do cloud separation for partners is in the information domain space. So switching from cross-domain technologies to information domain or cloud-native technologies. So we're looking at the evaluation criteria. Joe is definitely where it would be operating. We don't want to take the systems that are already under ATO and have any experiments there because they're running production. They may be a separate Joe node, but we're definitely looking at how the information domain applies across these OCONUS nodes.
Okay, I mean, they told us in 2 minutes the scanner will let you scan in the back to get your CE credits with the gentleman that's waving. So I think that's going to conclude the session, but like Adam mentioned, the DISA booth, we do have representatives there that you can go speak to them and they'll get in contact with some of us and kind of get you synced up with a broker if you have anything further questions or comments for us.
And please attend the follow-up DISA panels that are going on throughout the event. Ask your great questions and challenge us, right? We have a lot of great things within J-9. And I know with Steve Wallace and the various teams, DISA has a lot of great sessions that are throughout FCA. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.